Hello and welcome back to my channel. To begin this review of Fourth Wing, I want to talk a little bit about what made me want to read it in the first place and what I knew beforehand. I'd heard the name mentioned a few times, but the first time I properly took it in was actually in a video about the overconsumption of books, which showed a video of someone talking about all the editions of Fourth Wing that person had. I believe there are around 12, including the UK and US editions, as the covers are apparently a little different, and I think a Central European one as well, though that obviously didn't involve anything about what the book was actually about. I then watched a Hayley Pham reading vlog where she read it, and she mentioned it was Dragon School. There wasn't a whole lot of information there either, just something about magic and obviously Dragon School. After that, I saw a family member post a story about reading, and I thought it was probably that, so I briefly discussed it with her, during which I discovered that Dragon School was that they learn to ride dragons, not become them, which for some reason I thought was the case. Eventually I decided I've been seeing it everywhere, I might as well give it a shot. My library only had it available as an audiobook, so I borrowed that and actually used the full 21 days of borrowed time to listen to it. This is partly because audiobooks are just a little bit more difficult to get the time to read for me, and partly because I was reading other things in between. Something I hadn't been told about it was clear pretty early on, so it's not really a spoiler, and something I would have expected to have heard before, and that's that the main character, Violet, is disabled. It doesn't fully tell us what she has, and I've sort of assumed the world doesn't really have disabilities like we do, like there's no diagnosis or anything like that. I actually wrote out some quotes about it that give no plot-related spoilers, don't worry, that felt quite real, such as, "I note with some satisfaction that my legs feel strong today. I love the days when my body cooperates." And "I'm almost always in pain." It's pretty much my comfort zone. I personally have endometriosis, so I know about chronic pain, and it was really nice having a main character who has it too. Chronic pain, that is. What she has sounds more like EDS. But again, no diagnosis. Speaking of characters, I would like to note that there is one character who probably started out as a certain ACOTAR character. I won't give any spoilers about who, but if you've read both, you know. I found it a little bit funny from time to time, but it didn't detract from the book for me, though I know it would for some others. Thinking about that made me give a comparison between Violet, our main character for Fourth Wing, and Feyre, the main character from A Court of Thorns and Roses. In both books, the female lead is weaker than basically everyone around her. Feyre due to her humanity, and Violet due to her disability. And other than the fact that they both wear their hair in a plait, which is a common trope in general, there are a few others, but that would give spoilers for both series, so I'll refrain. Though I will also mention Violet's name in a similar way that I did Feyre's in my review for the first book, and that's that her last name is Sorrengail. Sorrengail. Feels pretty on the nose for a dragon rider, but also she comes from a family of them, and surnames in the real world are often based on what occupations people had, Smith, for example, then it makes sense. I found the book as a whole reasonably predictable throughout, but not necessarily in a bad way. For example, someone asked me if Y had happened yet, and I said it probably wouldn't until the last third of the book, and almost bang on 67%, it started. The only time I found the predictability disappointing is when something happened around 80% through the book. Obviously I don't want to give spoilers, so I'll try to explain in an analogy. A group of them are going to paint a mural. They can all paint whatever they like. I guess that X number of people are going to paint dogs. Then I guess who those X people will be. Then, lo and behold, those people paint dogs. It was a little annoying, but also not a deal breaker or anything. There were also some bits that were predictable, but only about 5% of the book away from when it was revealed, so it wasn't too bad at all. I do want to make some notes on the audiobook itself. I didn't much care for the narrator in general. It was sometimes a little difficult to understand what was being spoken or who was speaking, but I got used to it. It's also a first-person book, and the narrator didn't use much of a different voice for narration than what Violet said aloud, and that was difficult. I had to go back a few times to work it out. It also sounded like she had a cold for a couple of chapters, but I guess that's probably something that happens occasionally with audiobooks in general. I haven't listened to enough to know. What was worse is that partway through the book, the narrator changes. This narrator doesn't try to keep the voices even remotely the same as the first narrator. There were also various bits that were like the meme of Dumbledore in the Goblet of Fire, how the book states, he spoke calmly, but in the film he's shouting. If it says the character's voice sounds gravelly, then surely the narrator should make the voice sound gravelly. Or if someone is emphasising a word, emphasise the word! Overall, I'm not really sure how to rate this book. I think partway through I got a little burned out on romantic fantasies because I did not even realise that was what this is when I picked it up. I'm a multi-genre lass and I've been reading a lot of romantic fantasies lately. It's strange. I did enjoy it and I will continue on with the series. Hopefully the next ones won't take me as long to listen to, though the next one is 7 hours longer than this one. But I do have a lot of reading plans coming. We'll see how things progress. Interestingly, this book didn't do the thing that most first books in a series do, which is end with enough questions for a sequel, but conclude enough that it could be a standalone. I can only assume the publishers had great faith in it, which it seems they were right to when people are out here buying 12 copies of the book because they loved it so much. Hey, there's even a colouring book out! I guess with all the comparisons I've made to A Court of Thorns and Roses, I should probably rate it based on that, and I think I enjoyed this more than at least the first half of the first book. Because of that, I should probably rate it the same 3.5 or perhaps a 4, as it was maybe better than I rated A Court of Thorns and Roses in my review. I'm really terrible at ratings, which is why I told myself I wouldn't do that when I start reviewing books. And then I did, and now I'm stuck. I did write down quite a few quotes from this book. And if you want to hear the cringiest line, then stay past the outro. For those of you who don't want to hear it, then thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to, and maybe you'll see me in the next one. Until then, bye. The quote is, "You have incredibly touchable skin." Not soft, not smooth, touchable. Bye.